and I felt like he was just still ripping one-liners and jokes throughout it. I'm like, can you not just at least have a bit of seriousness to it? Like, you're telling a serious story here. I know it is a story at the end of the day, but not everything needs to have a wee joke and a riff and a, oh, I'm Stephen Fry, ooh, I'll make everything funny and smart.
Hello everyone, welcome to episode 33 of the Audiobook Club podcast. I'm Jonathan and I'll be hosting today's episode, and as always I'm joined by Michael, Stephen and Jason. If you guys want to say hello.
Hi.
Hello.
Hello.
This episode we're going to be discussing the book, or the audiobook Mythos by Stephen Fry, and it's actually written and read by Stephen Fry. So just a quick summary of the book. So Mythos is a modern collection of Greek myths as retold by Stephen Fry, and the book covers the creation of the world, the rise of the Olympian gods, and a wide array of captivating myths involving gods, titans and mortals. So I believe like Stephen Fry this is like the first of 4 books in this series, and I think like this one focuses mainly on the gods, whereas then you have the next book will be Heroes, which is about Heracles and Odysseus and all those kind of, so this more focuses on the higher entities of Greek myth. So why did I pick this book? I mentioned last time whenever I revealed the book that I have a love of mythology, and I think Greek mythology in particular. But this book in particular, the actual retellings by Stephen Fry, just his interpretation and the way he presents the myths, it's just, I just think so good. Like, it's like a lot of the myths have a lot of dark and dreary tones, but Stephen Fry really, presents them, most of them with comedy, and gives them all a lighter touch. And I think like this was described by critics as like very accessible by modern audiences. So I think this is definitely a good way to get into Greek mythology if you're not too familiar with it before kind of delving into a more academic style. This is more of a entertaining, lighthearted version of these stories. And obviously, as you go through, as if you have listened to this book, you'll have realised how many words or topics or things, like stories that have now like been readapted by, say, like Shakespeare and stuff, actually originated in these Greek myths. Stuff like that we'll get into, like, but like say like the word arachnid, meaning spider, comes from one of the characters whose story we'll discuss later. But things like that I just think so fascinating, and yeah, just one of the main drivers and why I picked this book. So I'll pass over to you guys and we'll see what you had heard about this book before, if you have read it, or what you know about this book, or even just Greek mythology in general. So we'll go to you first, Michael.
Yeah, I had read this book previously before doing this podcast. This is actually the 3rd time that I would have read it. And like yourself, Jonathan, I've always really liked Greek mythology. I think I mentioned that on our Norse mythology episode a while back, that Greek mythology would actually be my favourite. I think that sort of started with the Disney film Hercules. I can remember watching that when I was very young and really liked that movie. I know that's, as this book goes on to show, is very an accurate depiction of the gods and everything, but I found it was a good start for me. And as you can attest to, Jonathan, we had a game when we were younger that we played, a city building game called Master of Olympus. That was also like this kind of Greek city building game involving the gods and the heroes and everything. And I really loved that as well. And I had a PlayStation game as well called The Spartan, which was another which was another like Greek mythology kind of geared game. So I had all this media prior, which really had a lot of love for Greek mythology, and I knew some of these stories before this book. I knew the story of Prometheus getting his liver eaten out by vultures. I knew Kronos eating the rock instead of Zeus. But I did before I read this for the first time, I did not really know how the chronology and everything tied together. My impression was basically the 12 gods were like, they were all brothers and sisters, they were all siblings, and Kronos was like the father of all of them. But as this book describes, it's a lot more complicated than that, and they're related to each other in varying different ways. And it's not just it's not just Kronos. There's a whole different hierarchy involving nymphs and all the different creatures and everything. So it's more complex than just the Titans and the gods. I thought this book, I agree with what you said, that a lot of people would have said about it, that it is a good like entry level to mythology. It's written in a really clear style. It goes from the chronology really clearly. It starts at the point A, and it tells you how they're related and it makes it very clear how each of them came to be. And I don't think every like mythological text does that as clearly as this book. I've read actually a few books on Greek mythology, and I would definitely recommend this one being the first one to read, because it just gives that great overview. And as you said as well, it gives that etymology, all the origins of the words and everything. And it just seems like so much of our language was like Latin and Greek influenced. I was just like, is there any words that don't have their origins in Greek mythology at this stage? Because it was time after time. So if any etymology nerds love to know like the origin of words and everything, there's tons of it in this book as well. And it's quite a dense subject, mythology. I think you're always playing a balancing act, what lens that you seek to view it from. Well, previously when we talked about Norse mythology, Neil Gaiman like handled that sort of like fairy tales, and he was a very, very intimate focus on like just a handful of stories. This is a bit of a wider scope. He went more stories. It's not as much as like a mythological textbook or anything. It's not the hundreds and hundreds. I think he's struck quite a good balance here between breadth and depth. It goes on to depth about some of the more interesting stories, some of the less repetitive stories really well. And he injects his like humor into like the modern dialogue and everything in a way that's not too obtrusive. It doesn't pull you out of the story or anything, but it's funny. It's funny without just, hitting you over the head with it. And it kind of pokes fun at like the absurdity of a lot of these stories, because some of them, are crazy. Like Zeus putting somebody in his like thigh to birth them. There's just some crazy things happened for the origins of some of these things. But overall, it's a book that I really enjoy. It's I read the book as well, the physical text, and I have to say Stephen Fry's delivery of it just definitely does elevate the material so much. I know we always go on about Stephen Fry on this podcast, but he definitely does such a good job of bringing it to life. And I would say these days I'm reading a lot more, and I'm actually enjoying like the written word slightly more in a lot of books that we do. But on this, I would definitely say the audiobook is far richer than the text, even though the text is still really good, just for Stephen Fry's amazing delivery on it. But overall, this was a great read. I really enjoyed listening to this book. It's just and it's so dense. There's so much going on in a way that is probably a negative towards the book too, because there's so much going on that I think, even though I said it's entry level, I think a lot of people coming away with this, like a lot of that was hard to grasp because there were so many names and so many small stories. But it's a book that rewards you if you re-listen to it and return to it, because you pick up more things because there's so many of those small stories. So yeah, I thought it was a great lesson.
Yeah, it was a very comprehensive overview there. I absolutely agree there.
For the rest of us, Michael.
I agree with exactly what you said there, Dan. Like, this is the second time I went through this. I remember the first time struggling to understand a lot of it because of the names and being like, who's who? But see, the second time going through it, it's just like, it's like so much better. And like, I looked at I rated this on Audible the first time. Like, I did it, and then like obviously updated that because it was like lower than I was like, geez, why did I give this rating? But I won't reveal any of that until the end. But yeah, completely agree with that point. I'll move on then. Stephen, how about you? Anything to add on top of Michael's
Michael's entire summary?
Michael's thesis, yeah. I really liked it. I was a bit concerned going into it that I wouldn't like it, because I was thinking it might be a bit closer to Norse mythology we did previously, and if you remember, I didn't really like that. Or actually, I can't remember how I scored it, but looking back, I don't think I really liked it overall. But this one was different. I think, like Michael said, the way it was more chronological, I think, was big points for it for me. I like when the stories are all tightly linked together and not just sort of disjointed, which was good. And yeah, Zeus is a wild man, isn't he? Wild man.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, he's a rapscallion.
Can I keep it in his pants?
Enjoy it. I think. Sorry.
Can I keep it in his pants?
Can he keep it in his pants at all?
It's quite different from the Disney movie depiction.
Yeah, I think a lot of like Michael said, a lot of the sort of names of the gods and some of the stories were definitely familiar to me. I've heard them, retold in various media over and over throughout the years. Like a lot of the names and stuff were jumping out at me, but I definitely really liked the way that he discussed like etymology of like words and stuff and where it all comes from. Like Michael was saying, I found that really fascinating, and I was thinking I was trying to think of things like just looking around that might also have come from some Greek myth. Didn't come up with any, but it was nice to think about them. But yeah, it was a good read. I don't really have anything to add on top of Michael. He kind of went really in depth. So yeah,
no,
it's good.
Fair enough. Jason, anything else on top of that?
Not much more to add, probably. I think I did have a good time with this book overall. I would say. I think some of the issues I maybe had, I suppose, not even complete issues, but I felt like there was a lot of information, which is good and bad. Like we got introduced to lots of characters, and we heard lots of different short stories. But I suppose you could sort of argue it's sort of a couple chapters and then they're done. There's not an awful lot of fleshing out. There's not an awful lot to sort of make you care sometimes, and I suppose that's maybe not the point of these stories. It's probably not to make you care about these people, particularly because they are just short stories, very short stories at the end of the day. But I did enjoy the sort of family tree and how everybody was linked together in that regard. Overall, I probably would say I did like sort of Fry's handling of this. However, there are still the sort of the Fryisms, just the way he does things sometimes, that sort of British humour, that QI humour, it still just sort of grates me a wee bit.
Fries your head.
A wee bit there. But no, overall, it was a good experience.
Cool. Yeah.
Just to add sorry, I forgot to say, I should probably point out that I this is the only book so far that I haven't finished. I didn't finish this one before we recorded. Then it ran out of time. We listened to this one over the Christmas period, and I just was too busy, so I didn't get a chance to finish it.
Well, the benefit of this being different stories and all is there's no ending.
That's the thing. Yeah, I thought I was kind of in two minds before we said we were going to record it. I was like, should I just wait? Should I get them to hold it until I finish it, or should I not? And I thought, well, maybe not, because first of all, it's myth, right? So. And it's kind of Stephen Fry's retelling of myths, so it's I don't know. And then I'd probably have heard a lot of the stories that were to come anyway, in some form or another, so I thought I might have points to throw it anyway, so...
Yeah, no, that's fair.
I do plan to finish it, but I just didn't before we recorded here, so...
Well, you can dip on whenever you have something to say, and if you don't, sure, we'll skip on.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we've kind of covered the kind of high-level thoughts on the book and things, so we're going to go more in depth here. So the way I've broken it up, I think we're worried about how I was going to break this up. But the book, like he said, although I think Stephen Fry remarks this, that there's a lot of contradictions and with timelines and stuff and all that, it is myth and you just have to kind of go along with it. The book does follow quite a chronological structure, definitely from the beginning. It kind of gets a bit all over the place then later in the book, but definitely at the beginning when it starts with the creation, the origin of the universe or whatever, stuff like that, it's quite chronological, and you can kind of see the building up of the family tree. So the way I've broken it up is into 5 different blocks. So the first 4 blocks are kind of main stories, or large chunks of stories, and then there's a lot of stories, as you probably realize, sprinkled in between these large chunks, and I'm going to come to them near the end, but because of the nature of this, it might have skipped over parts. So, like, you know, mention any story you want at any time. There's no real structure, so that last block is just going to cover all my extra favourite stories that I've kind of just collated there and been like, after creating the first 4 blocks, is like, oh, I like this story, so I'll add that there. But yeah, we'll get into block 1 here, so I'll kind of go through the summary of it, and then we can dip in then to the actual stories. So block 1 covers the creation myths and the primordial gods. So basically the beginning of the gods and what came before them and stuff. So the book begins by recounting creation myths, starting with the void of chaos, which is basically nothingness, and then the birth of the primordial gods. So this section essentially sets the stage for the entire mythological world and explains how the cosmos and its deities came into being. So we have chaos and the first entities. So from chaos, the first primordial, I'm going to have to get used to saying that, primordial deities are born. So just to quickly go through them, we have Gaia, which is Earth. So this is the nurturing, life-giving mother. We have Tartarus, which is the underworld, which is basically like a deep abyss. We have Eros, which is love, and that's the force of attraction that brings things together. And we have Nyx and Erebus, which is night and darkness, which they kind of follow after the first 3. So we have like a lot of, whenever Stephen Fry is reading about this, we have a lot of poetic beauty about these primordial beings, you know, emerging from nothingness. You know, he gives a lot of metaphors, and because these are quite abstract concepts. So I think the way he retells this, he gives more life into these concepts, makes them easier to visualize. So we have the story about Gaia and Uranus, which basically is spelled Uranus. So you see a lot of like overlap between like planetary beings and Greek gods, being that the Greeks were the first kind of astrologers. So Gaia gives birth to Uranus, and Uranus is like the sky, and then becomes his partner. So again, there's a lot of incestual relationships here, and it kind of shows like what the Greeks thought about like incest and, you know, even like homosexual, you know, relationships and all like that. That was all kind of free flowing. There was no worries about any of it. Like, so it kind of shows you that's what things like that were like at this time. But yeah, so Gaia and Uranus partner together, and they produce offspring known as the Titans, the Cyclopes, and the Hecatoncheires, which are these 100-handed giants. And then we have this recurring theme that we see time and time again, but Uranus has this fear that his children, I think coming from this prophecy from Gaia, has this prophecy that his children are going to overthrow him. So Uranus imprisons the Cyclopes and the Hecatoncheires within Gaia's womb, and then Gaia gets frustrated and enraged by this and basically conspires with her youngest son, Kronos, who is one of the Titans, and she conspires with him to overthrow Uranus. So then we have the fall of Uranus. In this section, we have Gaia providing Kronos with this sickle, which becomes this kind of symbolic weapon, or this weapon that's always associated with him. And he ambushes Uranus and castrates him. So we get Stephen Fry again, like filling this section with a lot of humour and giving us quite funny image of how the blood of Uranus falls upon Gaia, and this gives birth to the Furies, the giants, and the nymphs. And then also the severed genitals fall into the sea, and then Aphrodite, who is one of the Olympian gods, emerges later, but we'll come to that later. And then with Uranus being defeated, Kronos becomes the new ruler, but his reign is also marked by paranoia and cruelty, and he fears that his children are going to overthrow him, just as he overthrew his father. Again, this recurs throughout these stories. So that kind of like gives a high level over the first kind of section. So as we've seen there, a lot of recurring themes of the fear of being overthrown by your offspring. I think there's a lot of, you know, from the chaos comes creation, and then that creation leads to conflict and destruction, and there's a lot of this continuous cycle within the Greek myths, and you see it a lot here at the very start. There's one point that I like that Stephen Fry likens like Uranus as paranoia to like a CEO being worried about being outed by younger ambitious executives, which kind of brings you into the modern world and kind of, you know, makes this kind of connection between us and the Greek myths. So yeah, well, what are our thoughts here on this opening part? So we'll go again, same order. Michael, you first.
Yeah, I thought this was a very fascinating part. I think it's quite, I don't know if any of you guys thought this as well. It was quite like a prophetic thing about the whole setup of all the origins of chaos and the creation of time and everything. Like, I wonder how much of that is the actual myth, because that is surprisingly accurate to like actual science, you know, about time arising from this kind of energetic chaos. It's just like, the Greeks give them personification, really, but it's quite accurate. Like, scientifically, I was quite surprised, and I did wonder like how close is that to the actual stories that they told. And as you said, Jonathan, it kind of sets the scene for all the madness and the destruction and chaos that is about to ensue. I think Stephen Fry says at a point, he says like the Greeks created the gods in their image. So it's like a common thing throughout this entire story where the gods are extremely flawed and they succumb to these really, they're just like really petty at times and do these really senseless things that we'll get onto in future stories. But I find it really fascinating, the origin stories, and then the whole Uranus and that kind of that setup, and like as you were saying, the setup of being overthrown by your offspring, which is kind of a universal thing, not necessarily by your offspring, but it's been a fear since the start of humanity, like of being replaced by the younger generation. Not necessarily your son or daughter, but like seeing the new people coming on and realizing that you're kind of not the central power or not the central influence anymore, that you're on the peripheries of society. So I think it gets out a very universal fear that all humans have. So it's fascinating to see that repeated, and then the irony of having that repeated through Kronos as well and his offspring. There is a lot of that kind of poetic irony within these stories, and you could tell that was just something that the Greeks really loved to inject within their myths. But yeah, overall, I thought this was a really good, solid beginning.
Cool. Stephen, how about you?
Yeah, I really like the beginning. Again, don't really have much to add on top of Michael, but I like unlike Norse mythology, I like how it was kind of all set up, how everybody was born and stuff, and like where they all came from. But yeah, I just enjoyed it. Like, I don't really have anything to add. It was good.
Yeah. Jason, what about you?
Yeah, I think Michael sort of took probably a big point. I think, again, it was a solid beginning. I definitely was invested. I think, yeah, like, as Michael touched on, as I think you touched on as well, like, it's the sort of just the reoccurrence of the sort of power struggle and the sort of strife of losing out to the sort of younger man or the newer man. And like sort of Michael mentioned, like the irony of like Kronos essentially doing similar things as Uranus did to sort of try and hold on to his power. It's interesting, like some of the stuff is absolutely insane what happens in this book, and like I think Uranus and Gaia and like stuff in the things into Gaia's womb is just insane. Who thinks of this, you know? And like it just doesn't really let up from there. Like I think that's nearly, well, not what I didn't sort of what I enjoyed like about this is just how batshit some of these stories were. Like I think I had a very low level understanding, or even just like I heard the names and just that was about it. I just knew they were like figures in Greek myth, but like hearing some of these stories, some of these myths is just insane what these Greeks used to just chat about back in the day.
Yeah, I love like the randomness of things. Like sometimes it's just like even here you get like somebody's blood dropping onto Gaia, and then all of a sudden she's giving birth to like multiple entities, and just out of nowhere, like these important characters have just come to life. I just love the chaos and the randomness of it. I read before, like they're just preparing, like there's the only criticism, like this book was very well received, but the only criticisms came from more academic kind of people saying, you know, like the way the casual style here, like, you know, comes at the expense of depth. So some like, you know, classical scholars says that, you know, this is like lacking a bit of gravitas of more academic versions. So like, do you think, what do you have any opinions on like how Stephen Fry's like tone and like humour change the perception of like these myths compared to like more academic styles? Is that too academic of a question?
I think it's the fact that he's so upfront about it and that he's so transparent about it and that he uses these, like you said, the executive. There's so many like really on the nose, obvious modernisms within the book. It's just that I think if he was hiding it intentionally and he was saying this is exactly the stories that we're telling, like it would be more egregious. It's the fact that he is really he's really upfront about the fact that he's just bringing these stories and to a wider audience, and it's more about it's not at that point. It's not whether how accurate he gets them; it's whether he captures the spirit of the stories, I think. And I'm not an expert on Greek mythology, so maybe people can make arguments on whether he does capture the spirits of the stories. But certainly, the stories that I knew, I felt were depicted quite well.
Yeah, I think I would agree. And part of me's like, does it even matter? If because I liked it, so I don't care if it's accurate or not. It was good, and it's all myth anyway. So
I know it's all story, so it doesn't matter if it's been given a different sense because it was made up anyway. So I know like academics are like, we want to preserve the history, and it is preserved somewhere else. But in this case, that's not what he's trying to do. He's trying to make a good, heartwarming or nice version of the Greek myths.
Yeah, something I wanted to touch on was like the sort of the Stephen Fry-ness of the book. I do feel like sometimes he's almost like injecting too much humour into it. Like by all means, I have no great knowledge of the Greek myths, or like I care very deeply about them and think he is making a joke of them. But I just felt like some of the stories there was like a bit of it probably was a bit more serious, and he was still like injecting that humour in, where I actually felt it would have been potentially stronger if he just sort of let the story just actually have that bit of darkness to it. I can't actually think of a
like is it like one of the gods like rapes somebody or something like that, and then Stephen Fry like kind of like creates it as a joke.
Yeah, I think I couldn't remember the exact, but I felt like it was like something to do with sexual assault or something along that lines of just the gods and their nature.
Probably up to something.
Yeah, and I felt like he was just still ripping one-liners and jokes throughout it. I'm like, can you not just at least have a bit of seriousness to it? Like, you're telling a serious story here. I know it is a story at the end of the day, but not everything needs to have a wee joke and a riff and a, oh, I'm Stephen Fry, oh, I'll make everything funny and smart.
Jeez, you hate him, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Even though I really like the book, I can definitely see like the validity of people who might say that. I did read that in other reviews as well. Like Jonathan said, they were in the minority, that people didn't like the way it kind of detracted from the stories, and it was Stephen Fry inserting himself. The reason I didn't have too much problem with me is because I felt he did that. Maybe you disagree with this, Jason, but I thought he did it kind of sparingly. Like, I didn't think he did it a lot or anything. He did it maybe once or twice per story. I like that personality being brought into a dry text. It was kind of like, I was reading this kind of like, oh, I wish I had like history taught by Stephen Fry or something. I might have paid more attention in school or something, but
And like, yeah, I would actually say that I did enjoy it most of the time. Like, I did enjoy how it was told. I just feel like some of the stories, or even just maybe it was just, again, like you say, it only happens like once or twice per story, but each story is only about 5 minutes long, so it's then it is just still that high frequency. I just felt sometimes you just didn't need it. That was really it. But overall, it did sort of help the book. If the stories didn't have this sort of darker edge, you maybe could even argue that's like it would be suitable enough for children, but just in how he sort of does the humour. But sometimes like the stories are just a bit too dark. I feel like sometimes it's nearly pandering to like a younger audience of how he behaves when he's narrating and writing, I suppose.
Yeah, it's not very like as like there's just a certain I don't even know the word for it, but there's a certain sect of like British humour that it's just like that. It's kind of it's always the silliness kind of that kind of Roald Dahl kind of everything is very silly and whimsical, and I like that, but I could see that it would be grating. If it had been done a lot in this book, I probably would have found it grating, but I did find it was done sparingly enough to not annoy me. I think it was we found the right balance with it for me, but I can definitely see why you and some other reviewers feel that way. I think that's a valid enough criticism.
I'm always going to have something to say about Stephen Fry. So
fair. All right. I think we've kind of covered a lot of that over that section. We've actually talked a lot there about Stephen Fry, and we'll get more on them as well. So the second block then is I've titled The Rise of the Olympians. So this kind of covers a dramatic power shift from the rule of the Titans to the rise of the Olympian gods, who are led by Zeus, who I'm sure everyone's familiar with. So like in this section we get the introduction of some of the most famous gods in Greek mythology, like Zeus, and this kind of sets the tone for their future reign. So we have the story of Cronus and Rhea. So after defeating Uranus, Cronus becomes the new ruler of the cosmos. However, like his father, he's haunted by the prophecy that one of his children is going to overthrow him. So to prevent this, every time him and Rhea being his sister, I think, so again, more incest, but they're together, and anytime they have a child, Cronus swallows one of his child. So the children that he swallows is Hestia, Demeter, Hera, Hades, and Poseidon. So those being probably well-known names that are 6 future Olympian gods. So after he swallows the first 5 children, Rhea is reluctant to give up her next child. Cronus knows that she's pregnant, but in secret she seeks the help of Gaia. So together they devise a plan where Rhea gives birth to Zeus in secret and hides him in a cave on Mount Ida in Crete. She then tricks Cronus, so Cronus knew she was pregnant, was like, right, where's this baby? And she tricks him by giving him a stone wrapped in swaddling clothes, which he, doesn't even give a second thought to, and just takes her word for it, and he just swallows it. So I think Stephen Fry makes quite some funny things about Cronus, just, too busy with his ruling or whatever, and he noticed that he's just swallowed a rock instead of a baby. But no bother to him. But anyway, the next part is that Zeus grows up, and there's the Titanomachy, which it's called. So Zeus grows up in hiding on this place in Crete, and he's nursed by the goats Almathea and protected by the Curites, who bang their shields to drown out his cries, so Cronus doesn't hear him. And whenever Zeus reaches adulthood, he returns to confront Cronus. With the help of Mythos, who is a Titaness known for her wisdom, Zeus gives Cronus a medic potion, which forces him to vomit up the children he previously swallowed, and they're all fully grown and ready for battle. So now the 6 Olympians, with the help of some of the Titans as well, wage I think it's a 10-year war against the Titans, and this is the Titanomachy. So here we get Stephen Fry gives us quite a grand cinematic, large-scale conflict description, with thunderbolts, earthquakes, chaos, and basically a fight for control over the world. And then we have the Olympians' victory. So with the help of the Cyclopes, who are the ones that forge Zeus's well-known thunderbolts, and the Hecatoncheires, who are the 100-handed giants. So they use their 100 hands, they hurl rocks at the Titans. The Olympians are able to defeat the Titans. So the defeated Titans are imprisoned in Tartarus, which is the underworld, and they're guarded by the Hecatoncheires. Jeez, I think that's the last time I have to say that word. So
it's a great word, though.
I think Hecatoncheires means many-handed, basically, which is like I'm sure you probably do, like hectares, isn't that probably comes from like then they used to measure like horses with hands and stuff, and then hectares is like the field and stuff like that, so I'm sure it all derives from there.
What's the word again?
Hecatoncheires.
Getting good at it.
Good man.
So anyway, Zeus becomes the king of the gods, sharing the power with his brothers. Poseidon rules the sea, and Hades rules the underworld, and then Zeus rules the sky and becomes the supreme ruler of the cosmos. So here in this whole section we have more of the recurrent theme of the fear of succession, which we've discussed at length there previously. We also have, I can't remember who mentioned it, maybe Michael said about like the gods being portrayed as like humans, and they're very like flawed. So here we have like Zeus being portrayed as this flawed hero. I think his description is that he's like cunning and ambitious, but he's got significant flaws of lust, anger, and vanity. So yeah, we'll maybe go on to what are your thoughts on this section. So maybe we'll go to you first, Stephen, this time.
Yeah, sure. I really like this section because like I knew it was something like this was going to come eventually, but before you mentioned it, because obviously you have the Titans, and then they're sort of the big dogs. And I knew that Zeus would eventually become like the main, ruler of creation, right? So I knew there was going to have to be some sort of rumble, and this was it, yeah. And it kind of, I think it was sort of glanced over. He didn't really dwell on it for too long, which I kind of liked. I don't know how many times you can say like Zeus threw a thunderbolt at this guy and killed him or whatever. But it was really good. And one part that I really enjoyed was, like when they've won and they're sort of Zeus is like deciding where everybody's going to rule, and there's like Poseidon and Hades, and they're kind of like they both want they both want the sea, I think, but they're both lying about wanting one or the other to like piss the other one off. And it's those sort of interactions that Stephen Fry has that I really enjoyed. To be honest, to be kind of humorful moments. And then Hades gets Hades or hell, and he's like, yes, this is the best, but secretly he's raging. I love all that. Yeah, it's good.
Yeah. How about you, Jason?
Yeah, I thought it was quite a strong section, especially the whole story about Kronos and Rhea and birth of Zeus. I thought that was quite a strong, like longer form story, I suppose, because you say like there's a lot of smaller tidbits basically, but that was one of the sort of longer stories, which then led into the Titanomachy. There we go. I was going to try and get you to say the
Hecatonchires.
Jesus Christ. Yeah. I've written it down as well. It's worth about. Can't even read me writing there. I don't like that, and Stephen's probably right. I'm sort of glad that it was a bit less fleshed out in that regard, and that it wasn't like a good 3-hour segment of like Zeus flying about and throwing lightning bolts and all the rest of it. It was a bit sort of just like, here's the battle, here's what happened, it's all over, let's keep a story rolling, which sort of makes the argument for keeping everything sort of less fleshed out, because I think it probably would have dragged a bit if that was like really took up a lot of time and space. And just the last thing again, Stephen touched on, like all the gods are just like children. Again, it's another sort of theme throughout the book. They just throw their toys out the pram all the time. So, like, I mean, I know we're going to come up to all that. Well, I'm assuming we're going to come up to all that soon. Like, but yeah, it's just constantly they're all just wee brats at the end of the day. None of them's been
their father ate them, like.
Well, I know exactly. No, that was good, strong section.
I seen like why is like Zeus the god of like, I know he's the god. The gods are like gods of multiple things, but like you most associate like Zeus with like thunderbolts or lightning bolts, I suppose. But it's like lightning was like, back whenever these were written, it was like probably the most powerful kind of thing. Maybe volcanoes as well, I guess. But like, whenever they seen lightning, they were like, "Jeez, what the hell's that? That looks freaking dangerous as shit." Like, so they're like, obviously, whenever they whoever created this, it's just like,
just how it looks too, like the sound of thunder as well. Can you imagine like hearing that and having no rational explanation of it? Like,
you're just like, it must be some god up there doing something. Like,
God's mad.
Yeah. Yeah, Michael, what about your thoughts on this section?
I thought this was a pretty good section. Again, we start with Kronos haunted by the prophecy, kind of echoing the previous section of the story, and then we get our familiar names of Poseidon, Hades, Athena, a lot of the gods that people would know, like of the main 12. I really like the whole Zeus hiding away as a child and everything. It humanizes this figure that's usually seen as like the top of the hierarchy of all Greek mythology. It's like kind of like the whole hero's journey, being hidden away by this big bad and going back to confront him as a transformed into a man then, or adolescent or whatever he was at the point. Yeah, enjoyed it, and the epic battle. I thought it was a pretty fun moment of the book. It could have that whole arc could have like potentially be its own book or like novella, the whole Zeus hiding away and his relationship with Kronos. And I agree with what Stephen said. It's very funny, the whole Hades pretending that he was like overjoyed with being divvied up the underworld. I don't know how much of that again was a Stephen Fry injection or if that was the actual reaction, but yeah, it was a very funny moment. But yeah, I enjoyed this section of the book.
Cool. Yeah, I myself love this part of the book as well. just the description of the battle and stuff. But yeah, I definitely agree with what Jason said there. You know, he doesn't give you too much; it just gives you enough, and doesn't dwell on it too long or anything like that. So just, you know, there was a battle, a few lightning bolts are thrown about, and then the Olympians won. I think there's one of the mentions here, and I think we've talked about it already, but like, you know, the way he kind of does these wee outtakes, like when he's like describing something, like I think it's like when Kronos is like now associated with time. It's like he'll give us, you can see Kronos whenever you're talking about time and all that kind of stuff, like, you know, anything like chronicle and all, he'll give you like a list of words where you have the word chron within it. I always think those wee outtakes are so interesting. I just could remember that one in particular from this section. But yeah, we can move on here to the third block. So this is where things, I think, start to get quite interesting, and where we get Big Bad Zeus up to all sorts. So this is the loves, the affairs, and the offspring of Zeus. So we focus here on, you know, Zeus's many relationships and a lot of the offspring that come from these relationships. And, you know, there's actually at this point, I think there's only 6 Olympian gods, or there's 5 Olympian gods, and Hades is actually, so I think Zeus wants there to be 12 on Olympus, and then the 13th is Hades in the underworld. So at this stage, we only actually have 5. And I think the origin of like all the other gods is so interesting. Like, this is something I didn't really know until this book, in terms of like, you always assumed that Zeus, Poseidon, and Hades were like 3 brothers, and they were like at the top level, and then there's a level below as their children and stuff, but it's actually just like all siblings, or they're all Zeus's children basically. And then I think Aphrodite's actually, she's basically the oldest of all the gods, so she was actually the first one, so she came from the Uranus's like genitals that were thrown away in the sea, and she like rose up on the Crete, and then she sat there for a while before, like, you know, during all this chaos and stuff. But yeah, I just think the origin of all the gods is just madness and very, very random at times. So we have the story of Zeus and Metis. So Metis, we met before, is a titaness that helped Zeus overthrow the rest of the titans, and this is Zeus and Metis, the birth of Athena. So basically Zeus marries Metis, and there's another prophecy here that Metis is going to bear a child more powerful than her father, and Zeus again swallows her, determined, you know, not to be thrown over. I don't know why the gods keep doing this, or like whoever just keeps eating their children, but here we go. And then later Zeus gets a terrible headache, and then with the help of one of the other gods, Hephaestus, can't remember where does he come from? He's not one of the original ones, is he not?
No, I think he's one of their sons that they didn't want them and they threw him away.
I think he's
the forger.
He's Zeus's and Hera's son, and Hera didn't want them or something. That's right. But basically, he helps Zeus. So like the actual marriage with Metis and Zeus happens, and they conceive this child, and then Zeus eats the child, and then Zeus then gets with Hera, which is who we actually know as being Zeus's main wife then throughout mythology. But then later on, Zeus gets this terrible headache, and then Hephaestus, who is Zeus and Hera's child, is like the god of like the forge. So he's got like tools and stuff like that. So he splits Zeus's head open with an axe. And remember that the gods are immortal, so they can't actually die from anything. But whenever his head's cracked open, Athena splits out, fully grown and clad in armour. Which I just think is just an absolute madness. Like that, it's just like I have a headache one day and then you have a child then 5 minutes later. But yeah, Athena is like known like she's like the god of like wisdom. She's like supposed to be very smart, but she's also like one of the like you have Ares, who's one of the gods of war, but Athena's like the female counterpart for that. She's more like, whereas Ares is more on the physicality side of war, Athena's more on the tactical side. But then we have, as I mentioned, there's Zeus and Hera, who have this very volatile marriage, and a lot of the stories is Zeus having some adulterous relationships with somebody, and then Hera getting really jealous and punishing the girl, because she obviously can't really do that much to punish Zeus, being that he's a god as well. And there's this rule as well that's mentioned throughout, that's like one ruling by a god can't be undone by another. So whatever's decided by one god, the other gods have no power to undo that. Only the god who made whatever command or granted some wish or whatever, that can only be undone or redone by that god. But anyway, Zeus marries Hera, who again is his sister, and she's actually the goddess of marriage. But yeah, their relationship is extremely volatile, and I think one of the first tales we get about this is the tale about Io. So this is like a mortal priestess who seduces, and then he needs to hide his affair from Hera, and then he transforms Io into a cow. But Hera is not really filled by this, and she knows, but she wants to kind of almost play with Zeus, and she demands the cow as a gift and sets Argos, who's a many-eyed giant, to guard her. And eventually Zeus sends Hermes to rescue Io by lulling Argos to sleep and killing him. And I think whenever he does that, there's like, Hermes is always like associated with being such a nice god or whatever, but it's also, he just kills this giant in cold blood almost. And it's just, I think Stephen Fry remarks about how cruel the gods can be, even the ones that are seemingly nice. And I know we've obviously skipped over some of the origins of one of these, like say Hermes and stuff, but I think I will cover the come back to those in the block 5. These are like some of the other stories. But like, I think the way I separated these blocks is kind of like to go through the main things, and this is kind of more about Zeus and Hera's relationship, because we get a lot of stories around that. There's another tale as well about Zeus and Europa and the birth of Mythos. So this one, Europa is this Phoenician princess, and Zeus transforms himself into a beautiful white bull and lures Europa onto his back before swimming across the sea to Crete. And there gets with Europa, and Europa becomes the mother of Mythos, who is the future king of Crete. So I think Stephen Fry again mentions here, like, it's quite funny because like she just randomly gets onto this strange bull, no bother to her. But like as well, you have Zeus transforming him into something here. There's a lot of like transforming into animals from the gods, and yeah, like I think an eagle is one of the most common ones from Zeus. It's quite a majestic animal and stuff, supposedly linked with him. But we have a lot of, from these relationships, we get a lot of offspring coming from Zeus. So there's a lot of mortals and divine beings. So we have Apollo and Artemis. So these are twin gods born to Leto. And whenever she was pregnant, Hera came after her, basically. So Apollo is like the god of the sun and is this like striking gold figure. And Artemis is his twin sister, who is like the god of the chase and is like this very against sex and stuff like that. She's like the celibate character, and like I think there's a story later about somebody that happens to gaze upon her when she's bathing, and she punishes him for gazing upon her nakedness, which is quite funny. But yeah, she's all about like virginity and all that kind of stuff. And we also have probably the funniest one is like Dionysus, the god of wine, whose mother Semele is like tricked by Hera into demanding to see Zeus's true form, which basically results in her incineration, because the gods, whenever they're talking or interacting with mortals, they basically take this other kind of form so that they don't hurt the humans like by accident or whatever, and that like the humans are more trusting of them and stuff, so they basically come to them in like a smaller form. But because Zeus reveals his true form, he basically incinerates Semele. But Semele was pregnant with Zeus's child, and he takes the unborn like fetus and sews it into his thigh until it's ready to be born, and that's how Dionysus is created. Again, just an absolute ridiculous story. So yeah, just that's kind of high overview of this section. We get a lot of the jealousy of Hera. We get a lot of Zeus, using transformation to pursue his love interests. And I think he also turns into like a shower of gold at one stage as well. So it's not even just animals. Whenever I was listening to that, like the shower of gold, I was just thinking, is that, because I think it says golden shower, so I was like, does that mean a stream of pish? I think it actually means like a stream of actual like liquid gold or something. But yeah, what do we think about Zeus and Hera and these kind of stories and how they're portrayed, and then the birth of all the other minor gods? We'll go to maybe Jason first this time.
It's a very toxic relationship them two have. As I sort of said earlier, Zeus just cannot keep it in his pants, and Hera just rightfully hates him doing anything because he's just probably away cheating. Yeah, there was a lot of that, wasn't there? A lot of Zeus just like shagging, essentially.
You could at least let Hera in on it, you know what I mean?
What's wrong with Hera in the first place? Like, married?
Have the discussion.
It was just this is all just a bit of madness. I did the sort of highlights of this. I like the sort of, I can't remember who but I like the sort of birth of Hermes. I'm pretty sure he's Zeus's wean, isn't he? He's just like a wee genius, and he's stealing all the cows, isn't he? And he's just a wee rat. But that was funny. The bull story was mad with Europa, and the bull story was insane. It actually took me a minute to sort of work out what was going on with that bull story, and like Hera being like, oh, look at that cow out there, and Zeus was like, oh crap, she knows that I'm shagging that cow. And
that's a queer cow.
We all would. Wouldn't touch that with a barge pole. But no, I suppose it's not really the one section, but I feel like compared to the sort of other bits you've mentioned so far, it's probably a bit on the weaker end of the sort of three we've discussed so far. But I think it's just because this sort of section we've sort of broken it up two and two is just like, as I say, it's just Zeus and his affairs. Did we touch on Prometheus at all, and like the birth of the humans in this section? Or is that
that's actually the next block.
Next
we'll
section.
Be covering that.
Yeah. No, I didn't hear you mention it, but I just wasn't sure if you were including it in this section. But yeah, it's probably the weaker part of this story for me, this section. That's about it, really.
No, fair enough. Michael, how about you?
Yeah, I would sort of agree with that with Jason. I think it's probably the flaw of the book that I can pick out is that some of the stories are a bit repetitive on their themes. Sometimes it's a good thing with, as we talked about, with the Kronos and the father betraying, but sometimes it gets a bit old with like the repeating incidents of Zeus and his infidelity and hiding things from Hera. It's funny in a couple of stories, and then it gets a bit old when it's constantly repeated. But it was nice to see like the roster of gods getting slowly filled out. I like that Zeus's power of transformation. Well, we see other gods too transforming, but it seems to be mainly him. It's kind of has this whole, you imagine had that whole deniability of like, if you had have seen something in the wild as a Greek, you could have pointed and said that could be Zeus, that it kind of adds to that whole mystique that the gods can be anywhere and anything. And it's quite, we get this reoccurring thing of like the gods just being needlessly cruel with their punishments and everything. Hera, like, obviously Zeus is definitely the worst of the duo, but it's kind of messed up how Hera constantly blames like or punishes the people that Zeus is with when it's clearly his behavior that needs to be addressed. I thought the whole trick of like the true form being revealed, that was such a dark and messed up story. And one thing I wanted to mention is like the whole Dionysus. I don't know if any of you spot this, but it always reminds me of Hedonist Bot from Futurama. Is what I constantly picture in my head.
Yeah, can see that. All right.
Yeah, but I would agree with Jason. I think to me that was my one thing against this book is when it's the smaller sporadic stories. I don't think it's as strong as when it's like a more fleshed out story. I think the more fleshed out stories are always more engrossing. And like the constant barrage of like the smaller stories can get a bit fatiguing. I could see probably a lot of people would pick this book up and do like a story at a time or something. It's reading them all in a row or listening to them all in a row can be a bit, because of the repetitive nature of some of the stories, it can be a bit tiring.
No, yeah, fair enough. Go over to you, Stephen. What did you think?
Yeah, not much that. Again, as the guys were saying, the constant just repetition of Zeus being a naughty boy. It got a bit old very fast. Like, it was clearly hammered home that he just does whatever he wants. And even when he's caught, like Hera, and like the bull story where Hera is clearly onto him, he's like, I probably shouldn't do that, but I'm gonna. I'm still gonna. It was funny, like, but it did get annoying.
One like,
I still
and
like
I'll
the stories,
shag this
but...
cow.
Eh?
One like and I'll shag this cow.
He likes his own post.
Yeah, it got old, but I did like them. It just, I would rather more other stories in place of it, but it wasn't bad. I don't have anything to add. You guys covered it pretty well.
Yeah, I mean, like the way I've kind of gripped that section too, like it's probably one of the things I actually liked about the book is that like these wee sections were like sprinkled throughout. This all didn't happen in one big section. I liked like you get like these more serious stories, and I know this like stories are it's maybe towards what Jason's point is and how some of this is like it's just almost like raping someone, or obviously he's at the very least he's not being faithful to his wife. But like these ones are more funny because it is just this like Hera just coming after him every time. But yeah, the punishments are probably the most interesting part, like how Hera is punishing the people that are actually the women that are, you know, almost helpless. That some of the times they don't even know it's this, or like they have no idea. So it is quite funny.
One of my favourite stories, it probably sort of fits into the section, is the one with the honey, where like they're getting married.
Yeah.
And they have this contest to see who can make the most delicious thing, and this bee spends months making honey, like a wee bit of honey for them to eat. And it just says, you know, they can ask me for whatever they want. And so the bee asks him for something, and he's like, hardly. How dare you ask me for something? It just shows that he's like vindictive, and I thought that was pretty funny.
Yeah, it's this gives him the stinger.
Yeah, so the bee wants something to like protect herself.
Yeah.
Like, all right, I'll give you a stinger, but it's going to kill you as well.
It's like a fatal. He wants something that's fatal, and then the gods trick him or her by like making it fatal to her, not to the person they're stinging.
Yeah.
So I think that one was really good. Like, and I like, again, to go back to what we said earlier, at the end of that story where Stephen Fry sort of ties it into like the scientific name for a bee, or like I can't remember what it is now, but he sort of linked it back to all that again, and I really liked it.
Yeah, they do have like this constant thing where whenever someone asks them for something, it's like they always give them this like, what is the phrase, like monkey, what's it called again, monkey paws or something like that.
Monkey's paw, yes.
Yeah.
It's like this contradictory thing that's like they want something, but it's like they give them
like a genie as well. Does the same.
Yeah. And there's also a lot of the time, sometimes there's a couple other stories, and I will cover them in a bit, but it's the bee one's a good example where they did this contest, and they really the gods really like the honey, and I think that's what basically becomes like this ambrosia, this nectar of the gods as well, is like made up from this honey. But like it's like, even though this bee had asked us for something, and like, well, what the hell is she doing? They also were like, well, this bee also did produce this really nice thing. So it's like, yeah, we'll give you the powers to give you loads of bees so you can make more of this delicious honey. So they always do something that's in favour of themselves as well as part of the gift, which I think is funny. But yeah, there's a couple other stories I do want to cover that I'll get to in my fifth block. But I'll go on to block 4, which is, I think, probably, although I really like the creation stuff and like the actual rise of the Olympic gods, or the Olympian gods, I really, really love the stuff about Prometheus and the creation of humanity, because it is like this defiance of the gods. But yeah, this block will cover Prometheus and the creation of humanity. And Prometheus is basically this titan who helped the gods, the Olympian gods, during the war against the rest of the titans. And he's actually become a really good friend of Zeus. And they're basically creating humans, and I think they like sculpts them from clay or whatever, and it's like Athena breathes life into them. Something, is it like Zeus's spit or something like that? Or like the things that make these gods, but it's like Prometheus is the one that actually shaped them, and he feels like they're his, you know, he feels the most dearest towards them, whereas Zeus is like, he wants them to worship him and all that, whereas Prometheus thinks they're these independent beings and all who are just as good as the gods. But I think whenever Prometheus is creating them, Zeus basically warns them not to give them fire. And I think that's not only like the literal sense, but also the metaphorical sense of like the fire of like passion, you know, wanting to achieve and stuff like that, wanting to actually rise up. But just to cover Prometheus and Epimetheus, so they start by actually creating animals. So Prometheus's name actually means forethought, and his brother Epimetheus means afterthought. And they're tasked by the gods for creating the life on Earth. I think the gods are like quite bored and need the Earth to be filled with various creatures and beings and stuff. And Epimetheus, being afterthought, has this impulsiveness and gives all the best traits like speed, strength, flight, claws and all to all the animals, and leaves none of the good traits for humans. And Prometheus is like pitying the helpless humans who can't defend themselves in any way, and he decides to compensate by making them be able to stand upright like the gods, and by giving them fire, which Zeus forbade him for giving them, but Prometheus in secret gives humans fire from Hephaestus's forge. This gift basically transforms human existence. The reason Zeus feared it is again this fear of being overthrown and somebody new coming up, rising up to be better than he is. So Zeus punishes Prometheus, just to cover, I think chronologically it's actually the Pandora thing first, but just because I believe the story is one of the most famous stories, is the punishment of Prometheus is when Zeus basically chains Prometheus to a rock and sends eagles to peck out his liver, and then that regenerates overnight. And then I think he was saying that eagles are too good of an animal, so he like changes it to vultures instead. But basically Prometheus, being immortal, won't die, and his liver will regenerate overnight, and he'll just have to go through this day on day and have his liver ate by these vultures every day. But I think the whole point of Prometheus is he's this kind of symbol of defiance against tyranny. So that I think that Prometheus is covered in that. The Hercules is a TV show as well, that Hercules Disney thing, wasn't it, back in the day? I think that's one of the episodes is focuses in on that.
I think that's where I originally heard the story.
Yeah. I think that's where I first learned about this story, because I think like although it doesn't happen in this book and like it's made out that he's going to be eternally chained here, I think Heracles, who's like also known as Hercules in like the Roman sense of the word, is the one that then comes and frees him. And I just remember that scene from the TV show we used to watch when we were kids.
Yeah,
I think Zeus originally can't punish Prometheus straight away. Can't actually remember why, but instead he then wants to do something to punish humanity and essentially try to create something that's going to stop them from being able to overthrow him in the future. And to punish them, he basically creates woman, the first woman, called Pandora. So she is basically given this, which I think it's funny that it's always called Pandora's box, but it's actually, Stephen Fry describes here that it's actually a jar, and I think it's like the Greek word or something for like jar and like box are very similar, and somebody misinterpreted it and that's why it's a box now, but it was actually one of those jars that, you know, they used to keep like, what do you call it, like an amphora, kind of like that kind of jar. So basically Zeus gives Pandora this jar and says, you know, this is like a great gift and all, but you're never allowed to open it. However, driven by her curiosity, she opens it, releasing all the evils like disease, famine and war, and then she closes it and she leaves hope trapped inside. There's a lot of things can be like gleaned from that story. Obviously you have the dangers of curiosity, and then there's this ambiguity between the hope being trapped inside. Is it a good thing that it's trapped inside, or is it a bad thing? I think we'll talk about that. You can mention that as well whenever we get around to it. And just to finish off that section, there's also there's a good like Stephen Fry gives a good like recount of the 5 ages of man. So just to quickly go over them, there's the Golden Age, which is like this time of peace and prosperity where humans lived like gods without suffering. Then there's the Silver Age, when humans began to like toil and grow distant from the gods. There's then the Bronze Age, where there's a lot of war and violence between humans. And then the Heroic Age is this brief improvement where you had like noble heroes like Heracles and Perseus that roamed the earth. So that's like going to be covered in like the follow-up book from this, Heroes. And then you have the Iron Age, which is the current age, which is filled with hardship, dishonesty and suffering, as we all know. But yeah, that's kind of the section. And I myself just love the whole character of Prometheus, and just like him being so pro-human and all. I feel like as a fellow human, you know, you have to be happy enough of him.
I approve this message.
Exactly, yeah. But what did you guys think about this section? So we'll maybe go to Michael first this time.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%, Jonathan. Prometheus is a lad. Like, he is just, I love his relationship with Zeus, like throughout all how broy they are at the start, you know, and everything, and how Stephen Fry in a way depicts them speaking to each other and their relationship, and then obviously it turns sour. And I love that he is so like, they're so opposed on their philosophies of what humanity should be about, really. Should humanity just be basically there to worship the gods, or should they be there to strive towards possibly even equaling the gods in some measures? And I think, as the story of Prometheus and fire, I think a lot of people over the decades and eras and centuries and whatever have like speculated on what fire could symbolize. You said, I think you said knowledge. I think I've also heard before it could be a free will, or it could be consciousness itself. But I think that's an interesting point to think about, what that would actually symbolize. It could be any of them, could be all of them. And I think it's interesting that Zeus kind of feels threatened by humanity in this way, where them being uplifted like this is such a horrible crime. And I think it's still echoing back to that whole replacing of the offspring, only it's now the gods and humanity itself. And you can kind of throw in the whole the humanity shrug off the gods as they've gone on. I think the Prometheus punishment is really hardcore. First the eagles plucking out the liver, and then the vultures. It comes to, I don't know if you're going to touch on these stories, but just in case you're not, it kind of it harkens to this very extreme form of punishment that is in these stories. Sometimes the eternal punishment doled out to the immortal beings, like Atlas having to hold up the world, or like Sisyphus having to push the boulder up the hill, which all, I think, you can also read a lot of symbolism into a lot of them and what they represent and what they say about the human endurance or whatever. And then we get the story of Pandora, which I think is obviously, it's a huge, it's probably a name that a lot of people know. And as you said, the mistranslation of the box, whether like hope being trapped inside is a good thing or not. I think what my interpretation is, it kind of represents the entire nature of hope, that it is intangible and that it is to be pursued but never to be grasped. So it's not within the realms of humanity to quite have a full grasp on. It's just always kind of, it's never a solidified thing. Yeah, I thought this, I mean, I love Prometheus. Is probably my favourite character for this. He's just, I don't know what it is about him. He's just got a lot of heart that a lot of the gods don't have. He's a man of the people.
Yeah, he's like one of the only people too that actually stand up to Zeus. Like, I know a lot of, like, there's a lot of stories about, like, you know, even just mortals standing up to like Apollo or things like that. This is like the only one that's actually like standing up to the king of the gods. Like,
yeah,
I like what you said about the hope as well. Like, I think Stephen Fry like portrays it in this as this like paradoxical force. Like, he says it's like something that sustains humanity in a harsh world, but also prolongs suffering. So it's like, is it a gift or is it a curse? I think the ambiguity is like, it's like unsolvable, but like it is so well that this, like, I don't know how these people were just so smart to came up with this story. Like, it's mad that they like were thinking about these kind of like paradox and stuff. Like back then, like it's like, it's crazy. I know, like, you do get a lot of Greek philosophers and all are like supposed to be the smartest people ever and all, but it's just mad that they were able to create stories like this so long ago.
Yeah, I think a lot of that would be like constant retelling too. It's kind of like it's like pass the parcel, only you're passing like the clay or something, and everybody's shaping it in their own way, and everybody's improving and adding to it, and we'll never know like who had the biggest hand in telling these stories. But I think these were constantly passed down and constantly reshaped, and the meaning gradually came through repeated human experience. So I think that's why they're so powerful even now, and because they just speak to that universal human experience that is going to endure throughout of all of history.
Yeah, well, so Stephen, how about you? Anything to add on this section?
Yeah, I liked it a lot. I think the Prometheus stories really resonated with me in a major way. Like, I think, before I touch on that, but like the whole reason for creating humanity, like, just shows how much of a bad Zeus is again. Like, you know, the only reason he wants to do it is because he's bored, and he just wants to see what'll happen. Like, there's no other rhyme or reason to it. And then when it goes wrong, because Prometheus, you know, disobeys him, sort of thing, he gets raging and just throws out, like Jason was saying earlier, completely throws a tantrum again. But yeah, Prometheus, you know, he shapes these things and he thinks of them as like his children. From then on, it sort of like resonated with me as a father, because like you can tell that he wants his creations to do well, and like he wants to give them everything he can to, like, you know, have a good life and whatever. You know, even betraying Zeus, like his best mate, sort of thing. Like, you know, I don't know, something about it really stuck with me, and I just found it really enjoyable. This whole bit, sad for him when he got the punishment though. And yeah, that's all I really wanted to touch on. It's good bit.
Yeah, no, it's a good point.
And Prometheus too. What a fool, hey! What a fool.
Yeah, it's funny how like they give those words mean like afterthought and like forethought. Is it like,
yeah,
you know, it's just funny that's where those come from again. Like, yeah, Jason, how about you?
Yeah, I actually don't think I have an awful lot really to add to this. The highlight of this section is obviously the Prometheus story, and I think also, maybe I'm just a bit dumb, but I think the first time I even heard of Prometheus was probably that Alien movie that came out once upon a time.
That's so funny because like I've heard of him like elsewhere, but I was picturing that when the first time his name was mentioned.
Yeah, that's what I associate with the word Prometheus, which I know. I suppose the point of it is like sort of these gods giving life to the humans, isn't it? That is the whole point of the Alien film, which is why it's called Prometheus at the end of the day. But yeah, that was my first run-in with the myth of Prometheus. But
I don't think that means you're stupid, Jason. I mean, me and Jonathan's was a Hercules cartoon, like. So,
fair. Yeah, maybe. But no, it was a good story, strong story. Also, the Pandora's jar, strong story. I suppose you sort of say, like, is it good, is it bad? Hope is left in. And, I suppose the two big things from that is like, well, two sort of sayings that came from that is like, curiosity's killed the cat, but also like it's the sort of hope that kills you. So is it better that hope was left inside? Is it better that there isn't any hope? But you could probably debate that for hours.
Oh, hours. The great philosophers have been debating that probably for thousands of years.
Nah, a couple of hours, maybe.
A couple of hours, you're like, head out for a pint.
You can get the entire works of Plato on Kindle for 99p at the moment, so just in case any of us want to.
I thought you said Play-Doh.
Play-Doh.
I'm sure you can get some Play-Doh on Amazon for 99.
I was probably very confused. It was a better section than all the sister version.
No, that's good. All right, so this last section is going to be kind of just me just throwing on some of the other stories I really enjoyed, and you can kind of throw on any other ones. I'm just going to give a wee high level of each of them just to kind of rejig your memories, and if we can discuss any ones you want to talk about. Or like I said, I don't think I've covered all of them here, all the good ones, because like I don't even have that story Stephen said about the bee here. But yeah, so we have one is the myth of Arachne. I mentioned this before when I was talking about the origin of like words. So again, from the word Arachne, you can already see where this is going, but basically Arachne is this mortal woman who's a talented weaver, and she like challenges Athena to a weaving contest, and Arachne's tapestry was judged superior, but Athena, enraged by her hubris, transforms Arachne into a spider. But I think like what actually happens is like Arachne kills herself or something, and then Athena, this is another thing where Athena's like, even though you bit me and I'm raging, you were quite a good weaver, so I'm gonna make you a spider, like bring you back to life and make you a spider.
Game respects game.
Yeah, so we get to enjoy your weavings for the rest of eternity. I think like Arachne tried to kill herself because I think the punishment was to take away her ability to weave. And it's like, if I can't weave, then I'm nothing. Again, just kind of saying that she was defined by this one brilliant skill. There's also the story about Niobe. So Niobe's the queen of Thebes, and she boasted about like her superiority to the goddess Leto, who is the mother of Apollo and Artemis. So in retaliation, Apollo and Artemis kill all of Niobe's children. Again, that's just absolutely the brutal story, just for some girl like boasting. Our whole family gets wiped out. There's the story of Actaeon. I find this one quite funny. Quite ironic that it's like this mortal hunter this is the one I was on about before, who sees Artemis bathing, and he's supposed to be this really good hunter, and Artemis transforms him because she's angry about him seeing her naked into like a stag. So now that he's actually being hunted and killed by like his own hunting dogs and stuff, which is quite a funny punishment. We also have, there's, I think Michael, you mentioned this before, the story of Sisyphus. I think the whole him, like, he tricks death. I think he's like supposed to be killed or supposed to die, and I think rather than putting there's like this tradition where you put the Greek money on your eyes or like in your mouth or something, on your tongue or something, to pay the ferryman, but it's basically like he doesn't do that, and it's like, just whenever I die, just throw me onto the street and all, like just pure disrespect to my like body and all. And whenever he dies and goes down to hell, he basically talks with Persephone and says like, oh, like she's making a mockery, and she's like saying that, it's fucking shit going down to Persephone's place and all that kind of stuff. And he's like, he obviously like told her to do this, but he's like telling Persephone about all this and saying, look at that. And he's like, I think a good punishment would be to bring me back to life and make me younger and all. And she'd be like raging. And then she does that. And because one god can't undo the work of another, none of the gods can actually stop this. And he comes back to life and lives like another 50 years or something like that. And then I think whenever, like, before that, when Death is, I think, what do you call it, Death again, like Thanos or something like that. It's like, so basically like the Grim Reaper almost. And it's like whenever he's hunting Sisyphus, Sisyphus tricks him into like putting his own manacles on. So then he's like trapped, and it like traps him like a cupboard, and then there's like boys fighting in wars and stuff. And because Death's not there to chauffeur them to the underworld, basically people are getting their heads cut off and they're still alive and all, which I thought was quite a funny image. But yeah, I think the punishment was, because Sisyphus thought he was so clever and could kind of overcome any challenge, is they're like, you can have immortality if you can just push this boulder up to the top of this hill and get it up. And it's like he pushes and pushes and he's trying to get up, but he can never quite get there, and it rolls back down to the bottom and has to start again. And it's like supposed to go on like this for eternity. So some of like a lot of the punishments have this like eternal kind of theme within them. I also like too the stories that kind of describe like how the land is shaped. So there's the one about Persephone. So Persephone is like the daughter of Demeter, and she is like taken by Hades, and she actually ends up falling in love with Hades, and no one can find her. And then whenever they find her and they want her back, I think Hades says she has to stay one more night, and then during that night he gives her something, he feeds her something from his own table or something like that. And because of that, it's like she has to, whenever that happens, you have to return. So for 6 months of the year, she goes down to the underworld to sit beside Hades as the queen of the underworld. And then the other 6 months, she comes back up with all Demeter and her mother and stuff like that. So it's supposed to explain the seasons. So like the 6 months she's gone, Demeter's like down in the dumps or whatever, and that's when you get winter and autumn. And then that's why everything dies. And then during the summer, Persephone's up Mount Olympus or whatever, and that's why you get things growing, which I think is just such a cool way to like explain seasons, especially like back then when they didn't really have a clue what was going on with seasons. I think then the other one is the chariot, the sun chariot. So I think Apollo has a son. What's his name again?
I didn't like that one.
Which one? The sun?
The chariot one, yeah. There's something, I don't know, something annoying about it. Not quite sure
here,
what.
I'll give it a wee quick description here, and then maybe I can dig into it. So I think his son is called like Phaethon, and he's basically like Apollo's son, but Apollo's never taken any interest in them. Because of that, he goes on to Apollo being like, please grant me like one wish, whatever I ask. And Apollo's like, oh, no bother. And he wants to drive his chariot, and Apollo's like, no, you can't do that. Only he can control the horses. But because he's made a promise, he can't go back on it. So he has to allow Phaethon to drive the chariot, and he absolutely wrecks it. And he takes the sun too low and scorches the earth, which creates like a desert. And then he takes it too high, which makes it cold, which creates like North Pole and stuff, which I think is just funny again how they've explained why different land masses have been formed the way they are.
Yeah, I like the that sort of side of it, but I don't know, just the build up was annoying for me. I don't really know why.
Yeah. There's the one final story I wanted to mention was the challenge against Apollo. I think the guy Mars.
Yeah.
And I think they basically, Apollo's like the
Satyr, wasn't he?
Yeah, he's like the god of music or whatever. And this guy says that he's a better musician than Apollo, and he challenges him to like a music contest. And Apollo plays his lyre, and the other guy plays his flute. And then Apollo plays it upside down at one stage, and obviously he can't play the flute upside down. And the other guy's like, that's not fair. But anyway, I think it's like the muses who are basically like underlings of Apollo are like judging the competition, and they announce Apollo as the winner. And I think the way I wanted to mention this story is what Stephen Fry says, like some interpretations say that Apollo flayed him as the punishment.
That's just
I thought that's just the way it describes it. It's like he flayed him alive. I thought it was hilarious. But yeah, that's another interesting punishment. Yeah, so that's all the stories I wanted to just cover. That's the ones that were kind of missed out. Is there any thoughts on any of those stories or any other stories that I've not talked about that anyone's mentioned? So I'll kind of leave it open to the floor, whoever wants to go.
Yeah, there was one that I really liked. There was a group of stories for this one. It was about Eros and Psyche, or Cupid and Venus, if you're that way inclined. You like Roman.
If you're Roman.
Yeah. I don't know. It was something. I was just really interested seeing, like, you know, Eros is asked by, I want to say Hera, because she's a jealous bastard. Probably was it Aphrodite?
Rightfully jealous.
Yeah, well, rightfully so. But yeah, see, anyway, there was this human called Psyche, and she's really beautiful, and like one of the female goddesses is jealous of her. So they asked Eros, who has the power to make people or things fall in love, asked him to go and make this person fall in love with like the ugliest animal. And as he's going to do it, he accidentally, like, what is it? He uses his arrow, like, touches his arm or something, and then he falls in love with her. And you know, it ends up in this whole like love thing going on. I don't know. The only problem that I had with it was, why did he make himself invisible? And that's at that part I wasn't sure why that was. If it was like to make sure she really loved him, you know, because if she saw him, they'd be like, oh my god, it's Eros. He's like, you know, he's amazing, so I love him. Yeah,
I think that's why.
Yeah, and then her sisters kind of like, they're jealous of her as well, and they find out that she's going with this god, and they're like, oh, we're not having that. We're putting a stop to that. They kind of ruin it for her. And then I don't think it was in this book. I might have missed it because from the parts that I didn't, you know, get to. But I think I was reading then later on in mythology, she sort of she gets these like tasks to do by that same goddess that had asked Eros to do the thing, and then she eventually becomes an immortal or something. And I don't know. It's just the whole thing. It was really good. I liked it.
No, yeah, I can't remember exactly what happens. I know she gets revenge then on the sisters.
She gets revenge.
It might be like she's made immortal, so she can like have a relationship then with Eros. I can't remember, but like it's just brought up a point that a lot of like constellations as well are talked about, and it's like, a lot of the time when someone does something good or whatever, instead of making them a god, it's like they raise them up to be a constellation. It's like, that's a bit of a shit fucking reward. Like, I don't want to be a fucking constellation.
I just want to say, I really, just touching on the stories that you touched on, the Arachne one with Athena, I really like that story, especially when Arachne kind of just goes completely off script and starts depicting all the horrible scandals that the gods have been up to, and everybody's like shocked. And it's another one of those competition stories with the gods, like never challenge the gods, as the satyr story after with Apollo shows as well. And like Apollo is like, he's low key one of the biggest psychos in this book. He like gives me Homelander vibes or something. I always think of like Anthony Starr would play Apollo if he was like,
yeah.
I really enjoyed the Sisyphus story too. It was very like, reminded me a lot of the Norse mythology stories that we did, where a lot of the stories were based on like outsmarting the competition and everything. And I really loved that he got the better of even death itself. And I actually would have liked more of like the with death hanging on limbo and everything. I would have liked to see more funny descriptions and things like that between that. And I did also enjoy that Persephone story and the explanation of the seasons. I think that was like the most logical and satisfying of like the origins of things stories. I also really like the two Midas stories. The Golden Touch story it has that cruel irony to it. And again, the gods like granting the whole monkey paws wish and like kind of, I think, was it Dionysus who granted that? Was it? And he knows like it's a bad wish even when he's granting it, but of course he's not going to warn Midas of that. And I also found the second Midas story, the ass's ears. Midas has ass's ears for the barber, couldn't hold his water, had to whisper it, and then it was like reverberated and carried back to Midas. And I think through this section, like the last section too, we get like a lot of stories where it's like this slew of handsome men. Every man is like and he was the most beautiful man to ever walk. And then the next story was like, but this guy was really the most beautiful man. And then it was like the next story, it was like, and then I think Stephen Fry himself pokes fun at that. He's like, believe it or not, this guy was the most handsome guy, if you would believe it. But
I think there's that story about Echo and Narcissus or whatever you call it. I can't remember his actual name, but it's basically the word Narcissus comes from.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I quite enjoyed most of these stories. Were very, very fun.
Yeah, Jason, anything for you, Dad?
Yeah, just quickly give a run through the stories I did like. I did like most of them. I felt that Sisyphus was the strongest. I felt that was like the most fleshed out, honestly, of any of the sort of characters. I felt he got quite a lot of time, Sisyphus, and I thought that was very good. The Midas story was okay. The Arachne story honestly didn't do very much for me. Or the Chariot one, I actually forgot all about that. B story and the story where the character gets transformed into the stag felt were a bit gruesome, but like in a good way, a bit dark in a good way. So I did enjoy those. And yeah, I like the sort of explanations for the seasons with Persephone and Demeter. So overall, I found that those sort of wee side stories were quite good, but definitely Sisyphus was probably one of the highlights of the book for me, to be honest. The Sisyphus story.
Yeah, no, fair enough. Yeah, cool. So that's kind of everything I had on the actual covering the book. If no one has anything else to add, we can move on to our star rating.
Star rating.
Sounds good.
Star rating. So I'm interested to see what you think, because I feel like people are going to be a bit reluctant to give me a high score again,
Jesus Christ.
Sounds like you're paranoid, Johnny. I mean...
oh, you can... Well, Stephen, you don't even finish the book, so you're exempt.
There it is. Jason said he was going to say that.
I did say that.
Fair. No, I'm joking. Right, what we'll do then is we'll go to you first, Stephen, since you're slabbering.
Yeah, okay. I really liked the book. It wasn't anything super special for me though, but it was great, and I definitely think I would go to it again. I'm definitely going to finish it. But yeah, it was good. Probably give it... I can't remember how our rating score or our scoring system works.
You said the word really like, so we have number 8 is a strong like in our star rating.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Yeah, an 8. So there we go.
There you go, Johnny. I talked about an 8.
Thank you, Jason. We'll go to you next then, Jason, since you're looking at the scores, it seems.
Yeah, I was just keeping myself right. That's why. I feel like I hope I didn't go too negative in this book, because I feel like I do tend to slag off books and then give them fairly decent scores.
It's a 1 because Stephen Fry.
No, I as I sort of said, most of the time I actually felt Stephen Fry's writing and narration actually did help this book. There was just some occasions where I felt it was a bit jarring. I do probably still overall actually struggle with Stephen Fry as narrator. I don't think he's as good as you guys make him out to be. I don't love him as much as you guys, but that's something I've harped on about for ages now. Overall, yeah, same as Stephen, I really liked the book. I felt it was very strong most of the time. I would also give it 8 out of 10 as a strong like. Definitely, I plan on probably reading the other 3 books eventually.
Yeah, cool. Michael, how about you?
Yeah, when I read through the text of this, so I read through the text before listening to it, I was thinking, you know what, I'm about an 8.5 on it, but as I said, I listened to the audiobook and I feel like Stephen Fry does elevate the material. It is, I think I do have to give it the love of a 9, because this is the 3rd time, so obviously if I keep returning to it, I must really, I must love it. I've always loved Greek mythology. It is my favorite of the mythologies. And I think the way this book renders that mythology is really, really good. It's close to what you would actually, you couldn't ask for it nearly better. What stops me from like giving it the 10, which is like what I consider the masterpiece. My reluctance to call this a masterpiece would be that it does, there's just a few forgettable stories here and there for me. It's very, very difficult, I think, to get like a perfect rating for like a collection. But yeah, I think love accurately reflects how I would feel about this. I would even with me listening to this 3rd time, I know this won't be the last time, because I know that if I listen to it again, I'll get more out of it again, and it's always going to be like that. So it's going to be a permanent fixture on my re-listen queue.
Yeah, cool. I kind of more or less agree with what you just said. I think it is hard to give something that is a collection of stories, because there is going to be stories in there that are I wouldn't say filler, but that are just not going to, because there's so many different topics being covered. Basically, there's going to be some on there that's you're not going to favor, not going to engage with as well. But overall, I really enjoyed this. It's like so interested in like the Greek myth, and I particularly with this, I just like the way Stephen Fry linked it with modern day things and like the origin of words, and also like things that are like, you know, how the seasons are defined as we described there. So although I can't give this the perfect 10, I just shy of it on a 9.5. I just think this is a fantastic book. I have read Heroes, the follow-up this. I haven't read the other two, but I think now I will read Heroes again, or listen to Heroes, and then do the other two ones, Troy and Odyssey, that I haven't yet covered. Yeah, I just think these books are amazing. And I think I mentioned there at the start that I gave this a lower rating originally when I first listened to it. I think that is because it was harder to follow being the first time, and also this was one of the first audiobooks that I ever got. This was like at the start of like COVID was when I started listening to audiobooks, and I remember going like out on walks and stuff, and I remember listening to this. I remember exactly, it's funny, like I can like picture exactly where I was when I was listening to this. There's like this walk in Newry where I lived, like this greenway, and I used to walk up and down it just to get, you know, a bit of exercise, and I used to always listen to this. And I just remember like walking up there and thinking some of the names, like, oh, hold on, who's that again now? But yeah, I think this time round I had a far better appreciation for it. So yeah, I think 9.5 for me is where I'm sitting. But yep, that's the ratings. I think we've just kind of already covered the trivia of this book is basically a lot of Greek stuff anyway that we've already talked about. If there's anything you want to add, and the comparisons, I think we mentioned that game we used to play, Michael. That's probably the most influential thing for me, the Master of Olympus, you called it. I still would time and time go back and dip into that game. I was actually even thinking of creating my own remastered version of it, but it would be a big undertaking. But it's it was just a fantastic game, and it had like all the gods and stuff in it. There also is my favourite Assassin's Creed game would be the Odyssey one, which is about, you know, set in Greece. It's actually, I think it's set during the Peloponnesian War, but there's a lot of like there's a lot of like the beasts and stuff, like you have to like fight Medusa, for example, and stuff like that.
DLC, I think, as well, deals a lot with the gods from memory.
Yeah, so absolutely love that game as well. And so like Greek myth, it's just going to be, you can compare this to loads of things, and like a lot of modern stories derive from these. I don't know if any's have anything more specific to add on top of that.
Yeah, I haven't played them, but we should the God of War games too. They're based on aren't they?
The first three I think are, but I've never played the first three. I've only played the sort of two recent ones, which are more based around Norse mythology.
Yeah, that Master of Olympus one too. If anybody's not familiar with that game, because I don't think it's like a very well known game. It's kind of a more well known game to compare it to is like Age of Empires. It's kind of like that. It's a little city building historical game which you can like build temples.
Or well,
yeah.
Sort of
yeah, and I obviously at the top of the episode I mentioned Hercules. I remember actually when my mum like buying that videotape, and the first time I put it on, I just loved that movie. And I know everybody complains, it's not accurate. So I don't think he could have done like a very accurate children's version of it. I think the movie's absolutely fine the way it is. You know,
accurate to what though? Come on, it's all mad.
Yeah. I think I like the movie even still, even to this day. And I mentioned that Spartacus game too that I really loved. That was like an old PlayStation game. That was a really good game back in the day. But yeah, I think that's probably the main things that have made it stick with me for so long.
Yeah, I'm just looking at that Spartan Total Warrior game. That was the one, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
That's it.
That's what I'm just Googling that as you said it, Michael. I remember that from our Wayne's.
Jamie lent mine and never give it back.
Never give it back.
Classic right Jamie.
All right. I think we've successfully covered Mythos and Greek mythology, so going with our new system, we'll be moving on to our next pick, and then we'll go on to talk all the rubbish that we usually talk. So the next pick, I believe, is Jason. So Jason, take it away.
So I've actually a wee bit organised this time in that I think I have already got my next two picks sort of lined up. So it was just sort of hemming in hand about which to choose first. And I decided to go for...
Is that why you couldn't sleep last night?
That was it. I was panicking. I've actually already started this book, so I'm definitely giving it these now. It was... I'm going to copy and paste in the image. This is the sort of best image I can get of the book cover.
Okay.
It's a guessing game.
Guessing
Game.
Guessing ages.
But you'll see on the picture, I've done a bit of a paint job to scribble something out because that very much gives it away. I would be surprised if none of you recognise it. I think someone will know what it's about and how to do. I mean, maybe don't take part in the guessing, but I'm going to just post this in. So the book I am choosing is called Red Dragon. It is it is written by Thomas Harris and it is narrated by a guy called Alan Sklar. So that is Red Dragon. So this is like the original book cover, I think. This is like the sort of best one I could get. You can sort of see I've scribbled something out there, which hopefully you can't read. Does anyone recognise?
Yes.
I thought the scribbles was part of the cover.
No. Do you know it, Michael? If you do, leave it to the end.
I haven't read it, but I know what series it is part of.
Aye, right. Well, you can guess last then. Does that sound fair enough for everybody?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So doesn't give you much there on the cover, in fairness.
I actually think if I'm taking part in the guessing game, I think should everybody know what series it is part of?
No, I think that ruins it a bit.
Maybe you and Johnny take a guess first, and then Michael, you can let them know what the series is. Would that be?
Yeah.
Would that maybe help?
It doesn't really matter. Like,
well, just in case you want to add something in.
Well, I don't mind knowing what the series is if we want to play it properly. We all have to be on the same page.
Right.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Enough. Right. Okay. I suppose this is the first in a series of 4 novels. I think there is actually a prequel, so technically this would be the second book chronologically, but it was the first written in the 4 series books. The most famous of those 4 books is a book called The Silence of the Lambs.
Okay.
Yeah, everybody know The Silence of the Lambs?
Yes.
Yes, okay. So there you go.
Has everybody seen The Silence of the Lambs?
Yes.
Right. So you all know the series that we're in now. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So who would like to make a guess? Can
I go first?
You can go first, Michael.
I think it's ruined now, to be honest with you, but okay.
Well, you don't really know much about it.
Yeah, literally, that's the only thing that I knew about it. I think that this is a origin story of the renowned killer Hannibal Lecter. I think that this will go through his beginnings of cannibalism and how he first got into eating people. I guess
you've said the same 3 things. You've said the same thing 3 times there.
Sorry, it's just story. It's going to go through his beginnings
of a cannibal. It's going to go through his origin.
The eating people was new. That was new.
Does the cover give you anything? Like, does the covers tell you much?
See, this is why I think it was ruined. I had some stuff on the cover, but now it's just going to look like that. Yeah.
Well, tell us what you have about the cover. Go.
Right. So it's called Red Dragon. The character's face is in it seems to be like an egg, like a dragon's egg, and it's broken. And the shards of the egg are covered, have bits of blood on it. So clearly a serial killer or a murderer of some sort. So just to go on what Michael said, the birth of the serial killer, and then the title is in blood as well. What else? I can't really say anything other than what Michael said because we know now.
What are these?
What's the other cover though? The other cover's something hypnotic, maybe.
I could be completely wrong. It could be Jodie Foster's fucking origin
story.
Fuck
off, Michael. You know what you did.
I have a guess that's different.
Right, go Johnny.
So
you're up.
When I hear obviously the dragon part, what I don't think that's an egg. I think it's supposed to be like glass. And what I think is dragon is referencing the only other thing apart from the mythical creature when I hear dragon is Bruce Lee's Enter the Dragon. And in that he is like a kung fu master or whatever. So I think that this is it is an origin story about Hannibal Lecter, but he actually begins as some kind of fighter, and that's how he gets into taste and blood, and he's just beating the shit out of someone someday, and he just decides some of it gets in his mouth, and he's like, actually, you know what, that's quite tasty, and then he eats him instead. And that's kind of my thing that's distinguishing mine's from Michael's.
And he starts beating the shit out of people to tenderize them.
Exactly. He's like, if the more I beat someone up, the more tender the meat.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's nice, juicy meat.
I love it.
Right.
Yeah, I can't really add anything. I think I would like to know why it's called Red Dragon. I guess
I wasn't
maybe
finished with my guess either.
Thinks of himself as Red Dragon.
You were, Michael.
Yeah, right, Michael, one more bit of your guess. Go on.
There's a alcoholic
His guess.
police officer whose wife left him.
Hold on. If Michael's adding something, then I like to add that there's a character who's like pleasuring himself and then he throws a semen onto somebody.
And there's
Isn't that the book we just read?
Well, it's just that to everyone, but sure.
I think there's going to be, based on the second cover, I think there's going to be some sort of hypnotic element to the way he's killing people or like luring people.
He could be like a therapist or something, and then that's how he like gains their trust. That's where you're going with Stephen.
The Red Dragon.
Oh,
right.
Maybe he turns into a dragon.
Is that the guessing round over? I'm going to just say something.
We spent enough time on it.
I'm going to just repeat something that I said. This is a 4-book series. This is the first book written, but there was a prequel book written to this. This is the second chronologically. No one really took that.
The prequel, The Silence of the Lambs.
Well,
no, Silence of the Lambs is a sequel to this. None of these are right.
Fuck, maybe the prequel's the origin story then, and this one's like another story.
Mayhaps.
If there's an alcoholic cop who has divorced his wife, I won.
I don't think
if someone throws a single punch, if someone throws a single punch, I won.
If there's an egg anywhere in the story, I win.
That's fair. That's fair terms. We'll all agree on that.
Alright.
What happens if all of them are there?
It's the first that happens, so if it's
That's
like
a draw.
alcoholic or... See if it says this guy punched another guy that he was an alcoholic, I won because punched was first.
I don't care if the cop goes to the bar and has a sup of beer and then leaves, he's a fucking alcoholic.
So, just further to your enjoyment, there are actually 2 films you could potentially watch for this movie.
Oh,
so there's two different movies, but the same story. So the first film that came out is called Manhunter. That was directed by Michael Mann, and that is like the most 80s movie. So there's Manhunter, directed by Michael Mann. A very, very stylized 80s film. I've seen that. There's also a film called Red Dragon, which came out sort of after the success of Silence of the Lambs, which has like probably a bit more of a famous cast. I've not seen it. And I don't know which of the 2 is better, personally, but I quite enjoy Manhunter. So that's the book. It's about, I think it's about 12 hours long.
Grand. Right, 10 minutes of scuff now, and then see you later. What else are we consuming?
Eggs.
Eggs and alcohol and karate. I'll go first. I have been consuming, still playing a bit of Assassin's Creed, so I finished the 3rd one. And I'm playing, there was a spin-off called Assassin's Creed Liberation, which I think was released on like the phone, or like the iPhone or something originally, but they readapted it or remastered it and stuff, so I never played that one, so give that a play. It's pretty decent. It's a smaller game, but I'll be moving on to Black Flag next. I've also been rewatching Breaking Bad, still on that train. I been watching, I think I told, was it last time in this podcast, or maybe I just mentioned this to you, Michael? I've been watching this show on Amazon Prime called Secret Level. It's like, if you've ever seen Love, Death and Robots, it's by the same person. So
you did. Yeah. You did mention that, yeah.
Yeah, so it's like...
To me, I think just...
Yeah, I've been watching that. I can only watch the odd episode here and there, but it's very good. Like, it's just kind of like Love, Death and Robots. It's these random kind of weird, short animated stories. And the animations are all different, but then... This one specifically focuses on like games, so I think the first episode's about like World of Warcraft, and then there's one for Warhammer for 40,000, maybe some other games or some games there, I don't know. There's one's quite good. It's got like Arnold Schwarzenegger voicing the guy. It's like this king or something once they take over this island. It's quite good. But yeah, I've been watching that. Would definitely recommend that. I've kind of been watching some live reality shows like The Traders. If any of you have ever watched that, the new season is this season.
I'm watching it too.
That's good. Good TV.
So good, like.
Linda, what's she like, hey?
Well good. Oh, Linda, madness. But yeah, so season 3 of that's out, watching that. In terms of reading, I've actually been reading quite a bit now. So because of the new year, I remember last year, this time last year, I said I was going to read 12 books, one book a month. I'm trying that again this year. Last year I think I only got like 6 or 7. In the end, I actually started picking up steam near the end. I think I only had like 3 done in the first half of the year, and then got like the other 3 or 4. I think 4, because I think I got 7. But yeah, I've been reading, the book now is How to Teach Your Dog Quantum Physics, or is it How to Teach Quantum Physics to Your Dog? So it's basically supposed to like be quantum physics, but like layman's terms, so more understandable, i.e. you could teach it to your dog. So reading that's quite interesting. Kind of interested in quantum physics, but I don't have any use for it or anything, so I did have a bit of it in my uni degree, but I never pursued it after that. Quite interesting. Could be useful in computers in the future. Computers could be quantum at some stage. Who knows?
There's a big discovery, wasn't there, last month?
Yeah.
In regards to quantum computing?
Yeah, they're all about like trying to speed up how many computations it can do, but also
said it's at a computation that like would have taken more than the length of the entire universe to complete without quantum computing.
Yeah. I think like one of the challenges they still have to figure out is like they have to cool like a quantum chip. You need like this big friggin' liquid nitrogen, like this 2-story tank. They like cool it. You know, your normal CPU chip generates a lot of heat in your computer. This thing's like madness. Stuff like that, you know. So it's kind of like the way normal computers started. You know, remember back in like the 50s, a computer was like the size of a house, and then they just made them smaller over time. Hopefully something like that could happen. I don't know enough about quantum physics at the minute. That's why I'm reading this book. But no, that's more of an interest. I'm not looking to be in quantum physics or anything anytime soon. It's just interesting. I also like so that my goal was to read one physical book every month, so 12 in the whole year. I still read a lot of programming books and stuff online, but I've also been I got Amazon Prime there like 6 months, and you get like some of the Kindle unlimited books with that. And I've been reading one I mentioned before. I love like World War II history, and also I've been reading like this one called The Rise and Fall of the Third Reich. So it's basically about Nazis coming to power and then getting wrecked and stuff. But it's quite political, and it's quite an interesting book. Anyone that's into like the World War II kind of stuff. So yeah, I've been reading that as well. So doing quite a bit of reading at the minute, and I'm actually listening to the audiobook. I'm listening to the other Witcher book, the what do you call the first one, The Blood of Elves. So I've been listening to that as well. So yeah, doing quite a bit. We'll go to you next, Jason. Sure.
Well, I mean, I think I sent you in a wee photo. I've been doing a lot of reading recently, and just for Christmas I got myself a wee Waterston's voucher, and I bought the next 2 books in the Witcher series. So like I bought the next sort of short stories collection, and then I bought the sort of first actual book, like is in the novel, I suppose.
Yeah, that's the Blood of Elves one that I'm reading. Yeah.
So I was planning to read the sort of short story, the other short stories, which I can't remember what it's called now.
Storm of Swords, is it like
sort of like that?
Storm of Swords is like Game of Thrones, isn't it? It's like something like that, but
something like that, anyways. But I haven't got right.
Sword of Destiny.
So I haven't got around to those. I have been reading a lot of Brandon Sanderson. So I've read Mistborn Book 2. I think I might have done that by last time. I've been reading the Skyward series. I can't remember if it's called Skyward. I think it's called Skyward.
Skyward, yeah.
Yeah, so I've read the first 3 books of that, and then there were like 3 novellas. I've read all 3 of those, so I'm just on the last book. But I thought I'd take a wee break from that because I was getting a bit melted reading about space battles and stuff. So I'm currently reading The Road for the first time. I think I previously mentioned I listened to the audiobook and thought it was great, which is why I picked Blood Meridian in the first place.
Yeah.
So I'm reading The Road, and I do find that probably Cormac McCarthy's writing is much easier to enjoy in handwritten, in front of you format. I don't think it's particularly made for listening to. I'm getting so much more. I really like the audiobook, but I'm getting a lot more from it from reading, definitely.
Yeah,
it's easier to sort of keep track of everything because just the way he writes the prose, everything is just very like almost conversational and no commas, just lots of ands, and it's hard to sort of keep track of it when you're listening.
No quotations, anything.
No,
like that.
Just chats.
No punctuation.
Nothing. And yeah, I mean, I've been played quite a bit of Sparking Zero, Dragon Ball Sparking Zero recently, trying to sort of platinum that. So I think the last trophy I have to get is like play like 100 fights online, but the problem is I get my ass kicked most of the time online, so it's a bit difficult. But not really. I think
it's in my queue.
Yeah, I think I have like a 52% win rate, so technically I'm winning more than I'm losing. But I do enjoy it. I really enjoy it. Definitely, I finished the whole sort of single player aspect of that. I think it's a very, very good Dragon Ball game. It makes me wish that we could all just sit and play a big tournament, because I think it would be absolutely class crack.
Does it have this the tournament format that we used to do?
Aye.
Where it's
Aye.
like the word tournament. Oh,
The tree tournament, yeah.
Like, it is Tenkaichi. Like, it is literally like we could just sit and play it all day.
Class.
So you just have to go Guildford for Glasgow.
Does it destroy the knuckles off you when you connect a Kamehameha?
No,
does that still happen?
it's not the joystick anymore. It's more like tapping buttons.
Bad
Yeah, right.
More like, yeah, it's more like timing your taps more.
That whole shaking the fangs was very stressful.
Aye, no, it doesn't do that, because that'd wreck your controller, in fairness.
You had to stand up to do it as well.
No, you had to
And you had to
get your
shoot.
whole body into it. But no, I think it's an amazing Dragon Ball game. I'm very much looking forward to the DLC coming out. The last wee thing I've been probably engaging with has just been that I've managed to catch up on Dragon Ball Daima, which I was chatting to Stephen about a wee bit there. I imagine he'll maybe mention that what he's been consuming, but that's been me, I think, pretty much.
Sweet. What about you, Stephen?
Yeah, watching the trailers, loving it. I think they're really stupid, but I kind of like it for that. Like, I don't know how the trailers are getting away with so much, like blatantly, but it's just good TV, isn't it? I didn't watch the first two series, so this is my sort of first season with it, and I'm loving it. Highly recommend. I'm just annoyed that it doesn't come out. It's like Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then a break. Then Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I don't like that, but it's good anyway.
How excited are you for tomorrow? Like,
I know, can't wait. What else? Yeah, games. Like I was saying, I sort of mentioned, I have a big queue of stuff at the minute because I bought some games that my PC just can't run anymore. It used to be good enough to run the new stuff coming out, but it's just slowly dying. I think it's time to upgrade. So I've got like a backlog of stuff like Sparking Zero. I've got the Hogwarts Legacy. I know that was last year, but still. A few others like that. I think, what was the other one you were telling me about, Jay? Jedi Survivor is another one. So I have a big backlog of games.
class
I'm
game.
going to build a PC in the next couple of months, and I'm going to just binge all of those. So I look forward to telling you about it. Yeah, nothing else really. I'm not really watching anything new. I finally finished Rick and Morty. I don't know. It's just I needed something to put on in the background, and I found that was really an easy one to just have there and listen to it and watch every so often. It was good. Can't really think of anything else.
What about you, Michael?
Yeah, so I've read a few wee horror short story collections, and I've been going through like my old Kindle queue because there's a lot of books there that I previously went through a period of buying but never actually read. It seems that about 10 years ago I went through a big phase of wanting to know absolutely everything about the Roman Empire, so I have like 20 Roman Empire books in that queue. I'm reading one of them at the minute. I went to see Paddington 3 with my son Jonah. That was an interesting experience. I actually have not seen the first two Paddington movies. I've only seen them in bits and pieces. I've heard they're very good, but I've never actually sat down to watch them. But I can confirm that you do not need full context to enjoy Paddington 3. I have also watched a show. I think, Jonathan, you said a while back that you were going through, I can't remember if that's right, the Avatar animated show.
Oh,
Did
yeah.
you say you were watching
Yeah,
that a while ago? Yeah. So I always had I always saw it advertised on like Nickelodeon. Was it playing back when we were young?
Yeah.
And and I never really watched it. I think I watched the pilot a good few times. It's one of those pilots where I've seen a lot but never actually watched the full show. And I was like, this show is I know it's so universally loved and it's so highly acclaimed. It's got like an above 9 on IMDb, which like shows like Game of Thrones and Breaking Bad and like The Wire and everything, I think they all have like that rating. So it's like, how can it possibly be like that level, this little animated show? And I'm like I'm midway through the second season now, and it is so good. Like, it's just such an enjoyable show, and the character work. There's not a character that you're not endeared to in the whole show. You know, it's just everybody every episode gives more depth to everyone, and it's just it's a really enjoyable show, and I'm just addicted to it at the minute. I've been listening to a lot of podcasts, and like I'm going through my yearly existential dread of like AI stuff again. So that's fun, but don't know how much you guys
stop worrying about AI, Michael. AI is going to be fine.
Don't know how much you guys would be following up with like the latest news and all, but yeah, that's pretty much it for me. I've kind of just been writing a load of stuff, and I went to Newcastle there a couple of days ago, which was nice. Went to the seaside, so that's pretty much it for me.
Very good. I forgot to mention that, I've been replaying the Assassin's Creed games, and in 2 days I'm going to Rome, so I will let you know what all the buildings are like to climb, and if Ezio could actually have done that. No, yeah, that's cool. What about plugs, anything? I've got my blogs. I'm also have a New Year's resolution to post one blog a month, or aim to post one a month, and I have the next one almost ready, so should be ready by the end of this month. So just working on that, and the link will be in the description. Anyone else got any plugs?
I just wanted to mention we did receive a email. Yeah, so somebody emailed and they just said that we were included on a list on podcast.feedspot of like the top 100 audiobook podcasts. So I thought we would put their link there to give them a little shout out for including us there, and you can check out their list if you want to see any other of the podcasts included. I didn't actually look at it, but I assume that we're top because you would just assume that, wouldn't you?
I did look, and I think we were 38th.
38th. I'll take that. That's
that's all right.
Out of 100. Like.
Yeah, that's not bad. And if anybody else wants to email in, our email address is the audiobookclubpodcast@gmail.com. If you want to recommend a book, say hello, or comment on anything that was correct, anything on any of the previous episodes. I'm sure we occasionally get things wrong. And I'll just plug one podcast as well. Our album podcast we started publishing episodes. What's the Crack with Albums? I'll put the link in there. We've just got the one episode out so far, but those will start publishing weekly now. That's it from me anyway.
Cool. I think that's everything then. Yeah, successful episode. I think looking forward to talking about the Kung Fu Cannibal in the next one. So,
all right. Looking forward to it.
And eggs.
And eggs and alcohol.
Yeah, I think I will enjoy that book because I quite like some dark fiction.
I've never actually read The Silence of the Lambs, but I've seen the movie.
I've not read any Thomas Harris books either, but I've seen Silence of the Lambs, and I've seen Manhunter. Mary Kate really likes Manhunter, so I feel like Manhunter is a very true adaptation to Red Dragon, although I did see someone say that they changed the ending, so I don't actually know what the real ending of the book is until I finish it. Looking forward to it. I would recommend we try at least watch Manhunter. I might try and watch Red Dragon just to sort of say I've seen them all.
Alright, good stuff then, looking forward to it. See you on the next flippity.
See you on the flop.
Flippity flop.
Boy.
All the best, lads.